You're listening to the Heart-Centered Service Podcast.
A podcast to help freelancers create the lifestyle of their dreams while doing work that brings them purpose.
I'm your host, Francesca Mamlin.
And I'm your other host, Krista Aoki. Each week, we'll release new episodes with tips and personal stories for online service-based entrepreneurs.
We hope you enjoy.
Welcome to episode 8 of Heart-Centered Service. In this episode, we're interviewing Purpose Coach Sheila Joy. Sheila helps creatives transform their true potential into a thriving, soul-aligned business. And I've watched the different ways that Sheila has pivoted her personal brand over the last 2 years, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this episode. But over the last few months, Sheila's pivoted her business as a result of this evolution and her true desire to help people in a bigger way. And it's really amazing to watch because every time Sheila pivots, I think she also opens her heart more. And you see more of her true self, kind of like she's showcasing these different layers of her personality. And when I asked Fran about inviting guests onto the podcast, Sheila was the first person that Fran suggested. I think because we all feel stuck at times or all the time or whatever, and it's confusing AF to know how to move forward in your business when you feel like you're not really in line with your true calling.
Yeah, totally. And I met Sheila when she was in the middle of her most recent pivot. Krista actually introduced us and we spoke over video chat. And one of the things that immediately struck me about Sheila is how in touch she seems with her intuition as she was building this new chapter of her business. And the result has been so amazing. It's really been cool to watch her relaunch and that stuff. Her website looks incredible. And I can tell the work that she's doing is really in line with her calling. And I really admired the blog post she wrote. We'll link it in the show notes, where she got really vulnerable about the reasons that she pivoted her business. And as entrepreneurs, we have to acknowledge that we're constantly growing and changing and evolving as people. So our businesses have to grow and change with us. And that means that we have to pivot probably a few times, like over the years or whatever. So yeah, I'm really excited to welcome Sheila Joy to Heart-Centered Service. Welcome, Sheila.
Oh my God. Hi guys. So just first of all, that was just a beautiful intro and I might just like want to cry. I read it earlier and I was just like, this is beautiful. Oh my God. But no, I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. And we'd love to start by learning a little bit more about you, your business, and your background, and the different pivots and chapters you've experienced. So just tell us all about it.
Oh my, so it's just free reign to kind of just let's
start
from the beginning, right? So this is always fun. Yeah. So let's just, I guess, start from the beginning. And I was thinking my whole life has just been a pivot. And I think that's just the human experience. It's a pivot, and just if we can embrace that everything's going to change and allow things to change, that's part of why we're here. So I don't even okay, let's start well, I always say I started out with fashion blogging, but before that I was always online. I was on LiveJournal and Xanga and that scene in high school, and then that kind of evolved into a photography blog. I was in school for photography and I had a Tumblr and I just shared photos, and then that kind of evolved into fashion blogging because I always loved clothes and I loved taking self-portraits. And then I discovered Lookbook and Chictopia and stuff like that, where you could just showcase your outfits on a social media platform essentially. And then I created my first blog on Blogger. And my blog was splitneedles.blogspot.com, and it's named after a Shin song, which made absolutely no sense, but I could never figure out a new name for it, so I just kept it. And then I created In Search of Sheila a few years ago, I think 2016. So that actually was a very long process with me and my friend figuring out names, and that just fit, and it flowed with me through my fashion blog. And then I kind of started doing more lifestyle stuff, and then I was starting to share personal development and more mindset, mindfulness. I started my own journey with meditation and yoga, and I was trying to contribute more of that into my blog. And then it was just super all over the place lifestyle, fashion stuff. And then the first major pivot, I guess, was 2 years ago, actually, literally 2 years ago, which is crazy. And it's like, I haven't told the story in a while, but I I just got tired with fashion blogging, but I also wanted to monetize my blog because I realized, wow, you can make money with your blog, because that was like totally like, I didn't know that was a thing. So I was like, oh, okay. So then I started trying to make money with affiliate links and working with brands and sponsorships and growing my Instagram account and all of that, stuff that you do as a fashion and lifestyle blogger. And then I just like got to a point where I was burned out with all of that and realized that I hated putting affiliate links in my blog posts. It was time consuming. I hated looking for like clothes. And I also hated working, like trying to like work with brands. It wasn't fun. I didn't like it. And I also felt like a clash with my personal like lifestyle and the path I was going down. Before, like growing up, I was very materialistic and really into, clothes and like thrift shopping and just like buying things. I'm a Taurus, and we're kind of known for being materialistic, but we just like the finer things in life. So that kind of was like my personality. I liked having things, and I got to a point where like there was a lot of external reasons why I was trying to, run my blog, and I was trying to grow my followers, and it just turned me into a person that I wasn't this person who was obsessed with getting like followers, and I was like defining my worth based on how fast my Instagram account was growing, and then I wasn't making any money with like affiliate marketing, and it just like blah. So that was like the first like aha moment of, oh, I can either just quit fashion blogging or I can do something else. And I'm really glad I did something else, because that led me into like blogging about blogging basically. And I was doing that for a while, and I'm still kind of doing that. That was 2 years ago, and I was just like, goodbye fashion blog, hello blogging about blogging. And then I was doing that for a while. And then as my like business started to evolve and I learned more about being an entrepreneur, I started implementing more business tips and strategies into the content I was sharing. And then I was doing that for a good year and a half. Launched a bunch of courses, workshops, created a group coaching program. My signature course was Blog to Biz Academy. And then I reached a point where I was burned out and actually hated all of that. And that kind of led me to my fresh new pivot of abandoning all of that, but still not really abandoning all of that, but just kind of like going on a new course towards what I'm doing now, which is one-on-one coaching, which is purpose, mindset, and business coaching. So I still have a lot of the business stuff in what I do and teach and help my clients with, but it's also about making sure you're in alignment with your purpose and like what you're really here to do, and a lot of mindset stuff as well. So I feel like that was really long, but that's kind of that's the journey.
Oh, I love it. I love how there's that element of experimentation, because it seems like when you started out, like it was just like, oh, I enjoy these things and I'm just going to put this stuff out there. And then as it started to grow and then you started to grow as a person, you were really like honoring yourself and your evolution and like taking it into whatever direction you felt. Was there ever a time when like you were not honoring yourself and you dragged it along and down a path that it shouldn't have been on, or were you always kind of like really in tune with where you wanted it to go?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on that in my blog post that you mentioned earlier, which everyone should go read. It really just kind of eloquently like
it's a really great blog post.
It tells like the story like in a way that I can't tell right now, but anyway, yeah, I feel like when I pivoted recently, that was because I reached a point where I wasn't honoring like my true self, and I didn't even realize it. I was like forcing myself to continue launching digital products and doing like blogging and business stuff, and like I relaunched my signature course even though there was resistance there that I didn't even realize there was resistance, because it's like I worked so hard on this. I put so much time and energy into creating this course. I postponed my launch because like clearly that should have been a sign, but I was just like, I just have to relaunch it, like, and I need to make money in my business. I think that's where it gets really tough as business owners. It's like we rely on this income coming in, and this is what we're good at, what we're known for. And I think that's why I just kept going and like forcing myself, like then I didn't feel like I was forcing myself, even though like maybe I felt a lot of resistance. But looking back on it, I can definitely say that like, yeah. So that like, and I would have kept going until I like talked to my now coach, who like basically called me out on like not honoring like my intuition, and like I was really out of touch with like my heart. It was like a lot of like head. It's really in my head and my ego like the past 6 to 9 months. So I think I would have figured it out eventually, but without like having like initial conversations with her, and she really was able to like pick out like, is this like really like the path you should be going on? And just like I like little picking at it, and like really helped me get like down and like ask myself these deep questions, and just really spend the time with myself, like, is this actually what I want to be doing? And then that really helps me make the decision of, okay, it's time to pivot. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so much harder when money is involved, and it's really good that you had that outside perspective of that coach being like, because sometimes we really can't see it. If we're really stuck, it can be hard to actually notice that we're stuck.
Yeah, and I really like how you talked about how your worth was kind of like attached to like all of these different things, like, oh, Instagram, or like traffic, or even making money from my blog. And I don't know if it has to do with your heritage at all, but I talk to a lot of Asian Americans who tie their like self-worth into like the work and the results, and it's just such a high, it can be such a high pressure like family dynamic.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought it was really cool. Like today you posted on Instagram about remembering to have fun, and you're like scheduling having fun. And this is, I was just like, I saw it, I was like, oh gee, like I have to do the same thing. And
Yeah.
I think it really comes, well, for me, it comes from like my Asian American heritage, like
Yeah.
fun, what?
Yeah, totally. I was just at home visiting my parents, and my mom, like, she like her version of fun is cleaning the house or like doing the laundry, you know, and that's just the mentality of being like Asian culture. It's just like, I need to keep going, I keep working, and this, my worth is defined by this, and like all of this crazy stuff that, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of creatives in this business too are just like multi-passionates, and we want to do everything and be everything to everyone. So what do you have to say to someone who has like so many ideas of what to do, but then they feel paralyzed?
Yeah, so I think like the first step is just to honor being paralyzed. I feel like we try to fight like whatever negative like emotions or situations we're in, but we're clearly like, this is happening for a reason. And it's like, I look back on my life, and it's like all of those terrible things that, you know, I wish didn't happen, like brought me to where I am now. So this I don't know if paralyzation is a word, but this feeling of being paralyzed is helping you become aware of whatever like path you're meant to go down. So just kind of like honor that, and more practical tip of like, okay, I'm done honoring, like what next? I think just kind of like following your calling, which is like what I really felt called to do, with like so much resistance in my own like business and my personal life of like, I should go down this path, I should go down this path, but like what should I actually do? So it's like, yes, I love photography, I love fashion, I love personal development, I love blogging. It's like, I love all these different things. And I actually like had this crossroads 2 years ago when I like had my first pivot, because I was either going to start blogging about personal development and like mindfulness, or I was going to start about blogging. And at that point I chose blogging, and that was just the path. And now as I look back, I'm like, oh, you know, that really did happen for a reason, because it led me down like whoa, like, so that really brought me to where I am here today. And I'm actually now talking more about personal development, but I had to go through, you know, that year and a half of, you know, whatever I was doing to kind of actually talk about my true calling or whatever. But like inside, shameless plug, inside my Discover Your Calling workbook, there's questions in there to help, I think would really help multi-passionates kind of figure out like their next step, and to just honor the fact that, you know, whatever your next step is, it doesn't have to be the next step forever, and you can just keep going down these new steps. But I think like one question that could really help you, like if you really do feel stuck, is that really helped me during this last pivot, is like, what legacy do you want to leave behind, and like how do you want to be remembered like after you die and like all of this grim stuff. But like if you can answer that and then just figure out like which of all your passions will help you like start creating that legacy or accelerate that legacy creation, maybe, and that's kind of the path to go down. Maybe.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So I love how you talked about honoring being paralyzed, because that kind of emotion, and like any other negative emotion, we immediately fight it. But as soon as you stop fighting that, that's when you can actually learn from it. Like pain can be a really good teacher if you can learn how to sort of sit with it and not try to distract yourself, not try to numb it. Actually, like ask it, what is it trying to, what are you trying to tell me? And I love how you said that your next step doesn't have to be your forever step, because like I don't think a forever step really exists in this lifetime, especially like millennials, where studies show that millennials can have like 5 to 7 different careers in their life, that's really different from the previous generations. But I really think that's how a human life is meant to be lived. So I love that. And also like and the last thing you said too about what legacy do you want to leave, because you may have all these things that you're really interested in, but then you have this one purpose that you really feel called to. You have this mark that you want to leave in the world, and that can really point you towards what you want to focus on.
Yeah, and I think you can, I think just figuring out your calling and then figuring out how you can blend all of your passions into fulfilling that calling, because it's like I have I blend my photography and like my fashion, like all of those things I love, I blend it into like my marketing strategy and just my branding and just like all of those things. And I feel like we get so stuck in like we can only have one passion and that can be the only passion that we like build our business on. But no, you can blend all of them. But I think figuring out your calling will help you like integrate all of those passions. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you added about blending all of the passions too, because like I've always heard, or I've heard from somebody that like you have like your purpose, your purpose is kind of like the impact that you have on people, and your job is just the frame for that. Like you can really make that impact no matter what you're actually doing. Like you should do something that you enjoy, right? But like anything that you do can have meaning.
Totally. I was going to say, because there's like a difference between like what your purpose is and like what your mission or your calling is, because like your mission calling is how you fulfill your purpose. So I think that trips up a lot of people too, that their purpose is like their job for the rest of their life, or like I need to go to college and whatever. But no.
Yeah, I really like the theme of like embracing the pivots that you were talking about, because it's so true. Like Fran was saying too, like millennials, we love to pivot. And I think it's just, it's something to embrace, because everyone is going through it. And it's actually quite liberating to not have to be stuck in something for the rest of your life.
Amen.
So much, yeah. And there's still a lot of stigma around change. I think a lot of this might come from like older generations, because they lived in a very different world than we did. So there's still a lot of fear around change, especially when you run a business, because there's money involved with the business. There needs to be some kind of consistency because we have to, eat and stuff. And I think a lot of people are afraid of being seen as unreliable if they change their business. So like, what would you say to somebody who's feeling that itch to make a change, but they fear what it's going to look like to their friends and family, to the people who already follow their business?
Yeah, that was definitely something I've wrestled with over my many pivots. And I think it's prevented me from, doing a lot of like, even just small things of like sharing a story of, an aspect of my life, or like sharing parts of my 9 to 5. It's like, what will everybody think of this? But like when you want to make a huge change in your business and like what you're known for and like what your services and products are, that's even like bigger. So there's a lot of like anxiety around that, which I totally understand. So the way that I kind of like made my way through that was just like basically anyone who is a true fan, like I think distinguishing a fan from a follower, or just like a friend from a follower, they will follow you, or at least respect where you're going and cheer you on. And I think anyone else that is like, oh, she's not talking about that anymore, unfollow. Like they were never really, this is so cliche, they were never really a true fan anyway. And I think them like leaving is creating more space for you to receive more actual like people that are there to cheer you on and support you. So it's like, okay, I'm releasing all these people that don't care or support me so I can bring in more. So there's a lot of energetic component going on, and you can see my hands flying everywhere. But yeah, and just knowing that I'm staying true to myself, like, because I wrestled with that idea of like, oh, I don't know if I should do this. What will everybody think? But like, I just didn't care because I just felt so stuck and stagnant. Like, I didn't want to talk about like this topic anymore. I wanted to talk about this, but what will people think? Oh, but I will feel so much liberated and more like me and authentic. And when I actually talk about this, and then I did it and I was like, yes. And then I just kept doing it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that you're just like shedding all these layers, or like oh, I'm showing you guys more about me, and it really brings more people to you. So for anyone who's listening who's like scared of showcasing these or like making these pivots, actually, yeah, it'll maybe even turn a follower into a true fan, because they're like, wow, like, I can relate with you so much more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I even had people like that were like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited you're talking more about mindset. I like secretly wish you would have talked about that more, because I was just talking about like blogging business." And I was like, "Okay, I'm on the right track. People actually want to hear this from me." So it's nice to like to get feedback from people. So I think like sharing the journey is also really important, not just for like marketing purposes, but just for like your mindset and your confidence.
Yeah, I think you tend to attract people that resonate with you as opposed to like what you do. Like that goes for like anyone who builds a personal brand or an online business. So like a lot of times if you change your focus a little bit, chances are a lot of your followers are already into that stuff because they're the kind of people who would vibe with you, who would be your friends in your life. And that's really awesome. And then the people who aren't going to vibe with it will leave, and like, that's fine. We shouldn't fear losing those followers. Your pivot gave me permission to sort of explore different areas that I could be more fulfilled in my business. So a lot of times when you have the courage to be like, no, I actually want to talk about this now, some of your followers might be like, oh, she's doing this and I admire her, so I can now follow what I now have permission to follow what I'm really passionate about doing.
Yeah, and I feel like we just have been trained to think that it's bad to change because everybody else thinks it's bad to change and they don't talk about other things. So it's kind of like, okay, let's carve our own path right now. And this is a great example. I inspired Fran. So yay, go me.
Yeah, so a lot of people in our audience, I think, are kind of just starting out or dipping their toes into freelancing. And I get a lot of questions about like, okay, well, what if I want to like do social media and also like design, or and SEO, and like I want to offer everything. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. What would you say to someone who's just overwhelmed by all of the options when it comes to starting a freelance business?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because I clearly have a 9-to-5 still, so I feel like I do have more liberty to experiment because I do have that financial safety net. And then I talk to clients and students who, you know, like one student I have, she has her business, but she's also trying to delve into more of like what she's really interested in and what she wants to do, which is a little bit different than what she's currently doing, even though I helped her kind of blend them together, which you secretly, you can do that. But I understand, like for freelancing, it's like the narrative is you need to be, you know, really niched and like specific and help, you know, I do this and be known for this, which I think there's definitely like, there's a bit of truth to that, or like from a strategy standpoint, that's like good. And I think when you're just starting out, like you're experimenting. So just consider it like an experiment. It's like, okay, so I love all of these things. I love social media. I want to do branding. I want to do website design. And I know like I've followed Krista for the past 2 years and she's been figuring that out too. And I think like eventually like you will work your way to a point from all of this experimenting where you can niche down. And I think Krista finally like found like her sweet spot, which is like, yay. So I think just like experimenting, but like experimenting on one thing and just focusing on like the one thing. And if you love it, keep doing it. If it works, keep doing it. And then if it doesn't work and you don't like it, okay, let's try something else.
Yeah, kind of like the Marie Kondo method, like right. Just say thank you for the experiment and then wish it goodbye.
Yes.
I love it. I love how we brought Marie Kondo into it. Yeah, experimenting is totally the way to go, because there is still no like true roadmap to building an online business. Everybody has a totally different story, and it's still a very new like area to be building a career. So experimentation is so key when it comes to this stuff. And how do you know like when it's time to change things up, or how do you know when something isn't really the right direction for you?
Yeah, and I feel like don't get to the point where you're just like so burned out. So I think just being aware of like how you're feeling. Like I'm a chronic journaler. I love journaling. It's great for my mental health, and it's great for like my business strategy. That's when I actually get like ideas for things. So I think just, and you don't have to like journal your thoughts, but just find time to like check in with yourself and like ask like, how are you feeling, like Sheila? Or, you know, just trying to find balance so you're avoiding getting to the point of burnout, because that has happened to me. Like you heard my story earlier when I was like, all my pivots, they happened because I was burned out, because I wasn't, you know, checking in with myself, and I was putting like all of my eggs into one basket, and then it just got to a point where I was just burned out. I wasn't having fun. So like asking yourself, am I tired? Like, am I exhausted? Like physically and like mentally, like just checking with yourself. And then like, is this fun? Like if you're sitting down to write a blog post on a topic and you're forcing yourself to do it, which I found myself doing many times, red flags. So maybe like keeping aware of like all of these red flags. And if you're really feeling like that itch to go do something and it just keeps coming up and you keep thinking about it, you're thinking about it in the shower, you're seeing signs, people are like you're just like, you know, different things, like that's a message. So maybe explore that a little bit. So yeah.
Totally. Even for me, like I started a YouTube channel because I thought it was like going to be really good for people to find like my expertise and want to hire me eventually. But it wasn't really fun for me. Like at the end of the day, it like made me start hating video editing. And so it's really, yeah, it's been really fun to like kind of like, okay, this isn't fun. Let's try something else to fill my time. And so then, yeah, it's work becomes like not necessarily a chore, but like something I look forward to every day.
Yeah, you should be having fun in your business. And like, I read a book somewhere, I forget what it was, but they said like, what they said really stuck out to me. They were like, I've never known anyone who's lived a full and happy life, but hated their job. Like it's so like we put such a strain on like, okay, like you have to do something that's really lucrative, something like, I understand that, but like you spend so much of your time at work, and especially if you're building a business, like why would you just keep doing something that you don't love? Like it doesn't make any sense, because it's how most of your life is going to go into it. So it's so important.
Yeah, just because like strategy experts and whatever say like, oh, you have to do this, if it's, yeah, if you're checking in with yourself and you are like excited by it, then it's okay to step away from that.
Yeah, and I'm a journaling nerd too. So I'm just curious, Sheila, like do you have any like journaling practices that can help people check in with how they're feeling regularly in their business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, you and I both follow the moon cycles, so that's been a practice for me that's really helped me check in. So like the moon phases are yang and yin. Yang is like doing energy, where I'm like I'm working, I'm doing stuff, like working on my business. And then after the yang, clearly there needs to be a rest period. So like that's when the yin phase, where I'm like resting, restoring, you know, receiving and taking time for myself. So just implementing that into my life the past 2 years has really helped me check in with myself. And that's when I check in with myself. And I think for like questions, just asking, you know, literally asking you, how do you physically feel right now? And it might be really hard. I mean, it was really hard for me to just sit and like feel like I don't know what I feel like, but like if you keep doing it and then like journaling, oh, actually my head hurts right now, or like I feel a tightness in my chest, and like actually kind of exploring those and giving yourself the time to kind of explore those. And also just like mentally, how do you feel? I'm stressed, I'm pissed, I'm angry, I'm happy, and just like kind of why do I feel happy? Why do I feel sad? And just like kind of like being like a child and ask like why, and then kind of just keep going, and then everything will spew onto the page, theoretically. So
I love it. I love the reason I love following the moon so much is because of the yin and yang, because so much of society is like go, go, go. Like you should be working, working, working all the time. But if you're going to live your life like that, first of all, you're never going to have time to check in with yourself. And then you're going to like pick your head up a year from now and be like, how did I get here? And second of all, even if it's something you really love, you're going to burn out. Like that's just going to happen. So that's a really, really good tip. Even if you don't want to follow the moon, like just make sure you're building in time away from work, because it's the time away from work that you really find clarity on, like the feminine informs the masculine, as the spiritual people would say. It's where you find your clarity.
Yeah, and I read something on Twitter the other day that was even saying like, oh, our podcast's a distraction. Like, is all of this stuff that we're like listening to, it's kind of like a distraction from checking in with ourselves. So just like reminding yourself to like take a break. Like Sheila, you just did a social media or Instagram detox for 5 days, and like just letting yourself like step back so you can like do that check-in with yourself is really important.
Yeah, people always say like multitask, listen to podcasts while you're like doing dishes, but like that's time when you can check in with yourself, like when you're doing the dishes. I love silence, and like that's time for me to like check in with myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I just implemented this new practice for the Mercury retrograde where I don't touch my phone for like the first like 3 hours of the morning, because I get up really early. So like I go out to my porch and I just like watch the sun come up, and like it's just so nice to just sit there and be quiet, because normally in those hours I would be listening to a podcast, and like you don't really have to start your day out like with other people's voices in your head.
Oh my God. Yeah, I love that. I think like when I started my personal development spiritual journey, it's like I'd start the morning, like I'd brush my teeth, I would listen to like a podcast episode, but now it's just I don't touch my phone like at all, like until I feel like I go through my morning routine, and then I like and allow myself to check Instagram. So it's like I have to meditate first, I have to do yoga first, I journal. It's like I go through those things, and then it's like, okay, I went through my checklist, which is like very type A, which is very me. But then I'm allowed to get my reward, which is like getting on social media, which I think is it's a good thing for me.
Yeah, that's a really good way to approach it. One of the mistakes that can easily be made during a pivot is allowing yourself to burn out before you realize it's time to pivot. Like going back to like your most recent pivot, what are some other things that you feel like you could have done better next time, or you would advise other people to do better? And then some of the things that you feel like went really well in your most recent pivot.
Yeah, such good questions. So things that could have been better. I feel like in the beginning, I was this is like a mindset thing. I was running away from the business side of things because I had resentment towards that identity and that box I had put myself into. And it's like, I don't want to talk about business anymore. I don't want to talk about blogging anymore. And I think I even made a declaration on Instagram where I was like, I'm not talking about this anymore. And people were like, oh my God. And it was so liberating for me at that point. But then like, that was the very early stages of my pivot. And then like, as I continued working through like what actually my new like business was going to look like, it had to have the business stuff in it, because that is me. And it's like, I wanted to have all of me like be the new business and the new brand. And I have knowledge in business. I know a few things, and that's what people come to me for, and that really helped. So like integrating that into more of the purpose work and the mindfulness stuff and the personal growth work, and just like having that blend really allowed me to find that sweet spot, and that's what I do now. So if you like don't avoid, like clearly honor the avoidance, which I did for a while, and if you're running, okay, keep running, but just know like don't run away from it, or like check in with yourself and ask you why you're running away. That I like had to like ask myself, why am I resenting like this side of like my business and who I am? And then I went through all of that inner work, and then I was like, okay, we can like actually have this on my like services page now. so that's like the more of a mindset thing. And I feel like a strategy, like actual thing. So what I didn't end up doing this. So I didn't do this, but I was about to do this. And I'm really glad I didn't do this, was I wanted to I was relaunching, I was creating a new website. And I wanted to have a big launch, and I wanted to have 2 to 3 new blog posts and, a new freebie and all of these things to launch. And then I was just like, wait, I'm also designing a new website. I was moving from WordPress to Squarespace, which was epic in itself. And I also needed to write all of these blog posts and create a new freebie. And it was just like, no, if I can just create the actual web page, have the essential pages, like the homepage and, the about and contact, and you don't even need a work with me page. So that was an extra thing that I actually was able to get up, was the work with me page, just having the bare bones and the copy and everything. And I launched, and it was very stress-free. I think I spent a month with the design and the copy on the actual building the website, and then that was it. So don't put a million things on your launch list if you don't have enough time, because I would have burned myself out trying to launch with all of these things. So yeah.
That's really good advice. Even if you're not pivoting and this is your first business, you don't need 8 million things in order to launch. You can literally just have a website or a landing page, and then you've launched and you can be happy with that. So.
Yeah. So, and I think this goes into what actually went well with my pivot, because what I didn't do as well was kind of get stuck in hiding my journey of pivoting and just working on my website and then launching. So what I actually did was I eased into the pivot, or this can even go with if you're starting a business, just start with little spurts. People think you need to have a website or just some kind of landing page to make money online and start a business. And I realized that was just busy work for I had to not be stuck in, I need to work on my website first before I can actually launch services. So what I did was just confirmed in my heart that yes, this is what's happening. And then I started kind of sharing more content related to that on Instagram. So I really just started out on Instagram, and it was kind of experimenting. It was market research. I was okay, I want to talk about this, see how people react. And then I was able to get content ideas for the website from that without doing all of this crazy work. And another thing that really helped with the pivot was just being open with my audience and sharing that entire journey with them, which they loved being part of that. And I booked a new client without a website. It was just because I was sharing, hey, I have this new service. This is what I'm doing now. Let's work together. And so yes.
That's so amazing. Yeah. So something that someone could do who's listening to this podcast is go to where you have a following, or if you're just starting out on Instagram, then put this in an Insta highlight or something, and just put your services and what you're doing, show a little bit of a sneak preview to potential clients, and don't stress out about having the perfect website or having a website up in the first place, because yeah, you're right, you don't necessarily need a website to sign your first client.
And you don't even need a sales page, because I would have got tripped up thinking I needed an entire sales page, and I didn't have a sales page. I just literally got on sales calls. It's I didn't have anything. So it's just it can be easy if you let it be easy.
Your sales page is only as good as your connections are. It's only as good as the leads that you would send to that sales page. Which a lot of times, if you have a really loyal audience, then, which you probably had, you don't really have to write thousands of words of copy in order to get them to want to buy something from you.
Yeah. So I think leveraging your current audience, because I was trying to run away from my audience too. So it's earlier I said I was running away from the business side of things, and I was trying to run away from my audience too, because I think there was a lot of shame in the fact that I was changing, and I was just oh, I don't want anybody to see me, they probably think I'm a failure. I talk a lot about that stuff in the blog posts as well, but I think it was just a lot of shame in the fact that, oh, Sheila's changing, which is totally a stigma that society has placed on us.
Yes,
it's okay to change. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and I think just like being in this industry for 2 years now, like everyone does it. Everyone changes. Everyone goes through their pivots. So it's a totally normal thing, and it's really great because it's like out in the open as well, and it's not like hidden or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sheila. It has been so much fun to connect with you, and I'm really excited to share this with our audience. They're going to get so much out of this. You're so like tapped in, and you're so wise, and
thank you guys so much for asking me to be on here. It's been nice to like, I think this is the first time I was able to like really tell the story like on a podcast episode, so this has been really like good for me too. So, and of course for anyone listening, I hope this was helpful, and just, you know, you can relate to any aspects of this, and just know that if you're just true to yourself, that's at the end of the day, that's all you need to do. So, and that's kind of just like my mantra, which, be true to yourself. So cliche, but be true to yourself.
This episode really reminded me, and I think it's going to remind our listeners, that it's important to schedule in those check-ins with yourself, so you can like be assessing like, okay, is what I'm doing, is this making me happy, or do I feel like I'm dragging my feet? And then to also like check in and make sure that you have that balance, so that you avoid getting to burnout. So and maybe this is just because I'm like from a family of workaholics, but I've finding that balance is like a daily struggle. Like I think that I'm making an improvement, and then all of a sudden like I'm not. But embracing it.
It's a daily thing, and not to get mad at yourself when you like fall off course. It's just like, okay, it's like, it's a daily thing, like you said.
Yeah, it's totally easy to fall into perfectionism with the idea of letting yourself rest. Like then you can get down on that, and it's a vicious cycle. Be nice to yourself.
Totally. And so Sheila, how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so definitely go follow me on Instagram at In Search of Sheila, and go to my new website. It's sheilajoy.co, and you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on to the podcast. It was so much fun.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Aloha.